We want to welcome everyone here, and we are first starting by sharing how grateful and happy we are to be here again in this heart-to-heart conversation. Today's topic, we will be addressing grief and also relief and hope with that in mind. This is our Counseling of El Paso team. We are a team here together, and my name is Jasmine Silva. I'm a licensed professional counselor and a registered play therapist, and I'm a provider here, Counseling of El Paso.
I'm Crystal Martinez Acosta. I'm a licensed professional counselor supervisor in the state of Texas and a nationally board certified counselor, and I work with Counseling of El Paso part-time.
Okay. Well, my name is Guillermo Castañeda. I'm the clinical director at Counseling of El Paso, and I work with, I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I work with clients that have pain and they need their pain relief. And I work with EMDR and hypnotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Guillermo Castañeda Sr. I'm a hypnotist, professional hypnotist, hymnologist, hypnotherapist, and I work in Counseling of El Paso. I work with all too much problems.
Yes, one of the things that Guillermo Castañeda specializes in is the anxiety, stress and anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So today's topic, what we want to talk about or address, and it's in part like the inspiration behind this for us, is we realize that during these times, we have been experiencing as a community and everyone individually, personally, different forms of loss. So we believe that this is very appropriate, especially with timing and everything that has been occurring for individuals, maybe feeling that certain things are starting to hit closer or have more of an impact over time. So on this note, some of us have experienced perhaps loss of loved ones. In some cases, for some families or individuals, they have lost maybe their jobs, their source of income. For some individuals, it's a sense of freedom, safety, which is also a very important construct that we have lost as a community for some, considering everyone is subjective. And also as a community, perhaps feeling a sense of loss of their community, family, friends, community, like perhaps in school, support systems, special events such as graduations, events that are gathered, perhaps with gatherings or family that typically are celebrated, and maybe feeling like, we haven't been able to have as many opportunities with that. For some individuals, it may be a sense of loss of health or even of lifestyle. So based on that, we believe that this is an appropriate topic to talk about and identify how for every individual, this is not a generalization, for everyone, grief may look and feel very different because it depends on the type of loss and even the complexity of loss that maybe we have experienced, because there might not just be one, there may be multiple, or it may have even been like a gradual or cascade of losses. So for everyone, it's very different. For today, we do want to be mindful. This is a presentation we're conducting, and this in no way replaces counseling. It's not a form of consultation. If you know of someone who may benefit from this conversation, the purpose is to build awareness and provide education as a support system for the community. Keep in mind that this is going on Facebook Live, and anything that's shared, any comments will stay there, and it will be public view, and it won't be private. So just keep that in mind as you decide to engage. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
And please engage, because we would like to hear any comments or questions that you might have as far as whatever you want us to talk about during the presentation, by all means. When we talk about grief, we do have 7 stages of grief, and many people have probably heard of them. And it's one of them is the shock and denial. Then we have pain and guilt, and everything will be explained as an example in a little while. We also have anger and bargaining. We have depression, reflection, and loneliness. We have the upward turn. We finally have acceptance and hope, and reconstruction working through. It's very important to know that when we're talking about these steps of grief, or the stages of grief, that they're not sequential. I mean, some of them might be very brief. Some of them might take longer. It might jump back and forth as we go through the process, but not everything's just like it should happen this way. So if you see somebody that's going through a grief process, just understand that, because it's very helpful for them that we don't try to rush the steps along. And if you notice that if you're stuck, or somebody that you know is stuck in one of those steps that is lasting actually longer than usual, just let them know that they can actually seek help with a counselor, with a therapist. And it's very important to understand that even if we're not stuck, the process can be a lot quicker with the help of a therapist.
And it's very important to understand. It's very difficult, very hard to understand which is the border of each stage, because sometimes we are confused about them. I don't know in this moment if I am experimenting one stage or another, but this is not the important thing. The important thing is to overcome these stages.
Yes, most definitely. And they can also overlap, as Guillermo was saying. They can overlap with each other. So if I'm feeling depressed, I might feel at the same time, I might feel angry about it. So yes.
So the way that we're going to kind of go through each of the 7 stages with you all to make it easy to remember and to apply the information right from the get-go is we're going to use an example from the movie called Inside Out, which was I think we decided it came out in 2016, right?
2015.
2015. Okay, so it's like a 5-year-old movie, but it's a really good movie that talks about emotions. And I think the main idea that people take out of it is how every emotion is very important and helps Riley, the main character from Inside Out, kind of deal with her daily life, especially because she's moving from one place to another with her parents. And so the other thing that's evident in this movie is how she goes through the stages of grief, and how the emotions also guide that process. And so we're going to go through each of the 7 stages and talk about how Riley experienced it from the movie, so that way we can look at the grief process through the lens of this movie.
One thing I may add, Crystal, you forgot to
Yes.
say something.
Uh-huh.
Spoiler alert.
Uh-oh. Oh, yeah, spoiler alert. That's true. If you haven't seen it, your therapy homework is to see it. And then also, yeah, spoiler alert. If you haven't seen it, we're going to talk about some of the main events that happen in the movie. So yeah, be careful.
Yes, most definitely.
In case you don't like the endings to be ruined.
Yeah, and if you don't like the endings to be ruined, by all means, you know that this presentation is going to stay here in Facebook. So go watch the movie, come back and watch us.
Yeah. That was a good catch.
So what we're sharing with you right now is the 7 stages of grief, like we explained. When we look at the character Riley, she is the main character of the story. She starts going through a couple of changes in her life. And the first one that we notice that she experiences, in context, I want to provide inside Riley, there are different emotions. There is sadness, there is anger, there is joy, there is fear, and then there's disgust as well. So in the beginning, when she's experienced this, she has a conflict, an internal conflict within her. There is a part of her that is shocked by the way things are changing. She moved from one town to another, from one city to another. And as she starts getting used to this new place, she starts realizing that things are no longer the same. So there's that initial shock, but there is also that denial piece. And in there, you can see joy, which is the emotion inside her that is trying to stay away from feeling sad, from getting in touch with that emotion. And in fact, is just trying to think positive, trying to distract herself, and just not trying to see things for what they are, which is things are different for her new home. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and also, so if we go to the second stage of grief, it's called pain and guilt. And so when we see Riley, go through the stages and how she moves from one place to another, her parents let her know, okay, we're going to be moving. And so pain in general, whenever we experience grief, can be physical as well. So those of you who have been through the grief process, if you can remember those moments where you felt the shock and denial of the news of whatever happened, whatever loss you were going through, you can also probably remember how that felt, like physically, how it's like a heaviness, and then maybe even some guilt. So typically when there's a loss, sometimes, not typically, but sometimes there might be some unresolved issues with the person that we lost, or even in Riley's case, like how she moved, like nobody died in the movie, but it was that guilt of, oh, maybe she's not going to be able to resolve something, or she's not going to be able to play hockey with her friends anymore, and she feels bad about it. So if you think about guilt, it can also kind of like eat at you for a little while, right? Like, oh man, I really regret not talking to that person anymore, or doing this or that in that city that I was living in, or any other type of loss. You might feel guilt and regret. And so that's part of like the initial stages of guilt too.
Yeah, most definitely. And one of the emotions that overlaps with that guilt, and that is one of the stages, is the anger and management. Which, by the way, anger was voiced by one Louis Black. I don't know if you guys know him, and he did a great job with it. And so when there's this frustration and this pent up anger, it just tends to come out in different situations that might not even be appropriate to whatever's happening. We noticed with Riley that she actually started getting into fights, for example, with a new hockey team, that she got very angry. That she also shouted at her parents. She got very angry with that. And we started to notice that she even got angry at her best friend and closed the computer, the laptop. One of those things that we were talking about when we started talking about bargaining is that we start asking, well, why not me? Or, why, for example, if we have a death, it's like, well, why couldn't it be me instead? And we start bargaining with a higher power, or we can bargain our values. And in this case, it was Riley was actually bargaining her values by getting into trouble with her best friend, by trying to run away from home, those are actually some kind of bargains.
Another stage is obviously the depression, sadness, depression. It's the stage that the person is trying to negotiate a new kind of uh, feelings. This is very important because the person shows several kind of emotions, and each one of us, it's necessary to understand that the person is feeling a deep sadness. In the case of O'Reilly tried to escape as a way of negotiate, but it is very important because she needed to be um, understood. It's very important to know what is the feeling that the person is experimenting. And we need to loan, to borrow our shoulder to cry in it.
There you go. So, like Guillermo was explaining, whenever there is feelings of depression and there is a sense of loneliness, there are times where there will be an upward turn. So when this happened, mm, what Riley in this story, like we're all describing, there was a pushback from her feelings, but once she was able to get in touch with her sense of sadness, with the feeling, she was able to make an upward turn. There was a shift inside where she was able to get in touch with her internal self, and she was able to realize that there were also memories that have where sadness has actually been helpful, where when she felt that way, people were able to recognize that she needed support, and she received relief from her parents, from her friends, and from her community because she was part of the hockey team. So that's where she starts getting in touch. She made contact with her own self, and she realized that there was more good to her in spite of the pain that she was feeling, that there had been more positive lived experiences for her.
I like that when she was rebuilding and doing everything, that even they showed it, that her world, like in her brain, was actually being rebuilt again. That it had, everything was the fun part and everything was coming out, and you could actually see it, that they were showing it. That was pretty cool.
Like the rebuilding of her personality, her traits.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most
That's
definitely.
Right.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
To rebuild the personality, it is necessary very deep reflection about it. But it is necessary to be understood by other persons. It is necessary, first thing, to understood their self. To understood, in the case of Riley, she needed to understand herself. And it is the beginning to rebuild the personality.
Yes, and then kind of with the reconstruction and working through, after that stage is the acceptance and hope. And so even though that seems like unfathomable when we first hear about a loss or we're first experiencing loss, it does become possible to accept what happened and kind of live a new normal with that loss, but then also experience hope and have good experiences after the loss. So if we think about the movie, there's a point where Joy gives kind of the controls back to sadness, or lets her like borrow them, right? And so that's kind of showing how we do need to go through grief and we do need sadness because it's an important part of our functioning, right? It's human to be sad and it's human to grieve, and that's how we process depression and loneliness and anger whenever we have a loss. And then also at the end, there's hope. So it's a Disney movie, so there's always going to be hope at the end of these movies, right? So
That's right.
they show her kind of living her new life and hanging out with her parents again, and everything is great because she's come to accept that this is her new place in life, and she's hopeful. And so if you imagine grief like a tunnel, when you go through the loss at the very beginning, you're like at the beginning of the tunnel and all you see is kind of that black tunnel all the way through. But then once you start getting closer to the end of the tunnel, where you go through reconstruction and working through and then acceptance and hope, you can kind of start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I noticed about that too, that with the movie, is that she was even playing with a new team and she was happy to play and she was doing everything again that she enjoyed. And that's what does happen at the end of the grief. We tend to enjoy our life once more.
Yes.
Right.
And it is important to understand the main reason. The main reason is the person suffered a loss. In this case, in this particular case, the loss is of our freedom. But understand in this way, we're not really losing the freedom. Because when we say, I want to stay in my home for security, I'm exercising my freedom.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a loss of freedom. I'm exercising that freedom. But my main feeling is I'm losing my freedom. No, that's not true. The people out there, it's saying me, stay in your home. Yeah, but the decision, it's mine. When I decide to be home, I'm exercising my freedom. I'm not losing freedom. It's very important to understand.
Yeah, I think there was even a meme. I don't know if you guys saw it with Jim from The Office. And he's saying like, just don't think of it as losing your freedom. Think of it as actually saving up to take all these trips after you come out.
Yeah, those are nice reframes.
Mhm. And I think at this point, we also want to make some things that can bring relief or some sort of hope for individuals. So reframing is something that is really helpful, is being able to see it from a different light, from a different perspective. It's more, instead of deficit based, it's more strengths based, right?
Right.
One of the things that comes to my mind that I have learned that can be really helpful is honoring. So, for example, if there has been honoring is special because sometimes when we get in touch with honoring, we get in touch with pain. We get in touch with what was beautiful. It could be something about a loved one, perhaps, because with this in mind, with everything we've gone through, we have to keep in mind that individuals have lost family members, possibly due to COVID-19 or just entirely out of life, a situational life experience. So sometimes honoring individuals your way can also be helpful because it can reclaim that somebody's existence mattered and that it mattered to you as well. So doing something like that can be very helpful and even empowering as well, if appropriate, of course. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most definitely. Enjoying the people that you have at home. You know, many times when the parents used to work outside, they would work maybe all day, and the children would be at school all the time. And there's a lot of moments that were lost. And maybe right now it's a time to reconnect with the people that you have at home.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I remember one man. was talking about his wife. Oh, I'm seeing my wife really looks nice. I didn't know her.
Yeah, yeah. You get to recap. You know, like get to know the person again.
Yeah.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And it is necessary to make some decisions to grow up. By example, study. We need to study. We need to play in family. We need to understand children, understand my partner. It's very, very important because in the life it's not easy to know completely to our family. And this is the occasion, this is the situation at this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I would recommend to clients or anybody who's going through the grief process is to make sure that you are taking care of yourself, and just getting your basic needs met. So remember to drink water, eat nutritious food, and the way I like to describe it to people is treating yourself like a plant. And so plants need air, they need a little bit of movement, they need water, they need nutritious plant food, they need sunlight. And so all of those things are really important as you're going through the grief process, just making sure. And if you are maybe living with someone who's experiencing grief or sadness or loneliness or depression, making sure you can, you can support them in that way. Like maybe you don't have to get to the root of their problems or listen too deeply about whatever's going on. But if you can maybe feed them something good and nutritious or bring them some water, making sure that they go outside for a little bit, that's a great way to support people, and making sure they get their basic needs.
Yeah. Most definitely. And also understand that every emotion that you have is normal, whatever you're going through. And you need to express it to someone. Let them know what you're feeling. Always talk about it. It doesn't matter if it's a family member, it doesn't matter if it's maybe somebody from the clergy,
Mm-hmm.
a therapist, just express it. Because if we keep it bottled inside, everything's going to explode. We're like pressure cookers, and we don't change the pressure, it's just gonna come out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important to understand the technology. We have the opportunity to communicate with our friends through Zoom, through another platforms. And it is necessary to rebuild old relationships with friends, with family, far family. Then it is an opportunity.
Yep, most definitely.
Yes, it is.
Also, if you like to travel, for example, just look for, videos of places that, to travel. I know we can't go, for example, to Europe, but we can see it on our screen. YouTube has a bunch of those videos, for example. You can see the videos of, France, what's happening, or anything, the mountains, the beach, anything that you like.
Yeah. Kind of like trick your brain into thinking that you're there, right?
Yes, most definitely.
And there is power in that too, because that's also referring to like dream building. If that's something that is like a longing or a calling for you to travel, it really helps to know. And I do know that is also a quality in resilience as well. From Blanca Campa's research, she has identified that having that vision, envisioning things for the future can also be very helpful because it helps us see, like Crystal was describing, that light in the end of the tunnel. Mm-hmm.
And one thing that, I would also like to add is that there's been many pandemics before. This is not the first. It might be the first in many of our lifetimes, but it's not the first. And the world, keeps on moving. And after this is over, the world will go back, maybe a little bit different, but it will go back and will do the things, that we have done before. So, just keep that in mind, and that might also help with this, patience, because sometimes it can be overwhelming. We're going through a grief process, but in this case, it's not permanent.
Yes. And it's important to make an inventory. What we have, and be thankful to God, thankful to the life, thankful to the universe, but give thanks. It's very important. It's a very clean process to process our emotions.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Yeah, being grateful.
Yeah, so if there's I'm looking for the messages, and there's nothing there. So I don't know if you have anything else to add, Jasmine.
No, I think that if you feel you'd like to get more information about this, we will be sharing the the 7 stages of grief. We can share it on this feed as well. You can download it, you can go through it, share it also maybe with somebody else who maybe, because one of the things that happens that is very powerful is when I always believe in this, when we can name it, we can tame it, and then we can change it. But sometimes not being able to know, I know I'm going through something, I know it's something going on inside, I don't know what to call it. Is it normal? Is it not normal? When we can see it and say, okay, that's what it's called, then it feels like we know how to address it. So it's really re-empowering as well.
Exactly. So if you'd like more information about Counseling of El Paso, I mean, we do have right here 4 wonderful therapists, and soon a fifth one coming in. If you'd like help with anything, just give us a call. We are Counseling of El Paso, and we're at Mesa and Wrestler. It's 6955 North Mesa, Suite 304. And our phone number is 915-209-1234. 209-1234. And our website is counselingofelpaso.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and we'll be in touch again.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. Thank
you. Take care. Thank you. Bye.